All right, welcome to the show. I'm your host, Sully, and here for this other exclusive special is the one, the only Craig Case from Munsons at the Movies.
One and only, I guess so.
I,
Hopefully, at least.
is there 500 other Craig Cases? Do you have a clone of yourself?
Hey, man, who knows with AI these days? It could be.
Long overdue. I just was always thinking, how can I get Craig on? And it's like, and it doesn't even have to be a movie or music discussion. It's like, how about we just talk about a lot of podcasts that are based here all throughout Texas and how we got into podcasting and any other just tips we recommend for anyone just starting it. Because at this rate, everyone's doing it. Their cousin in Normandy's doing it.
Yeah, or at least they can. I mean, if me and the rest of the Munsons pull together a podcast, anybody can do it.
Absolutely. And I love how you guys will every once in a while get deep and remind each other how you even started this. Is like we were all fans of the show, of the movie Kingpin. We had this kind of humor and this other references. How about we judge this actor? And it's just so funny. I do love going back and forth
Yeah,
with you on some of the other movies. Is like, okay, this is decent, but it's half-assed in terms of the budget, or yeah, maybe just the marketing department screwed this one up because the narrative's okay, but or maybe this one is dividing us because it's just junky. I don't know why.
yeah. Well, it's interesting when you start taking deep dives into those topics or actors or actresses, and you just start to see these, because a lot of times we're so far past what happened that now the story kind of presents itself cleaner. And my
Yes.
favorite ones are always the ones where there was a lot of drama on the set and there's a lot of things
Oh
going on
yeah.
behind the scenes. I love finding those things out.
Oh, even more fun when it wasn't that they were impossible to work with. It was that somehow they all said the same thing, but they weren't speaking the same language.
Yeah.
I love it when it's a Blade Runner incident where it's like the screenwriter's right, the director is technically also right. How do we make this more coherent to everybody and
Yeah.
stop all the
Yeah.
arguments?
It's fascinating. The TV and movie world it's so fascinating to see how things do or don't play out.
Oh yeah, and I always hold my breath when you guys announce the box office score on these celebs you're ranking because it's like, yeah, this person's the TV person. It's going to probably be less than 1 million.
Yeah, it's interesting, and like we've got at this point now we've got so much data that like anything else, you start getting so much data and you start pulling it together, and if you can analyze it right, it's interesting to be able to compare people. and
Right?
and and what I tried to do was, I tried to weigh everything evenly, so that way,
They have this
um,
ranking as this celeb we last ranked, and
yeah. So we actually don't rank total box office, because if you did
right.
that, then like Chris Pratt would probably be your number one actor of all time because he got so lucky. So that is weighed just as evenly as, or not, that's not weighed at all, but we also weigh, like, if somebody's critic score,
Oh
it's the
yeah.
same as their box office score. So if you have somebody that's, just a tremendous actor, and they do well, but maybe they're in a bunch of independent films.
Hmm.
We try to level the playing ground, so it's not just A-list celebrities the whole time.
Oh, totally. It was a lot of fun even listening. Yeah, you've done so many different ones. I'll name off a few. I mean, Danny Trejo, Cameron Diaz, and even Christine Baranski were interesting. It was like, hey, they clearly all have a huge fan base, but how much of it was the movie was good and they added to it versus it was just a good movie and it was a role anyone could play, or maybe it was just they're likable, but they didn't really go evolve too much acting wise. They stayed
Yeah.
in their zone, played it
Well,
safe.
I got a lot of feedback from people that were doing podcasts, and they were talking to me when we were first getting things off the ground, and they were like, "Well,
Sweet.
who's your audience?" And I'm like, I don't know, people that like these random actors.
Yeah.
I don't. We're not trying to make any money off this. We're not trying to do anything except just enjoy movies with each other and hang out. And so hopefully, the fans of John Slattery will listen to it, and even if they disagree with us, at least they know somebody else is talking about somebody they
Oh,
like.
absolutely. And you guys do good at just doing disclaimers like, hey, we are not here to pick on these people. We were just unimpressed with their turnout, or the movies were fine, but their acting was just kind of the same, And it wasn't. It was you do a good neutral ground sometimes, like, and sometimes a lot of them write themselves. You dumb ones like Laura Linney and everything. It was like, yeah, they rule, but you know, your mileage might vary on their movies themselves. They're pretty depressing or for a certain crowd. So that's where it also just gets a little more. I just wonder where the critical divide just keeps coming up. Would people like it if it wasn't overhyped and filled with awards galore on the poster? Or does it need to be just more dumbed down and have a superhero cape on it?
Yeah, but then
can't.
people don't like that either.
Yeah, that's just it too. Everything's getting oversaturated again to where I really am convinced it's just marketing. And it's funny you bring up who's listening, because half the time that feels like they're trying to every other person's insecure going, oh, well, you got to do this or that. Like, or maybe you can do that. We can do this.
Yeah, I think the interesting thing about all of that stuff is just as long as everybody's got an equal opportunity, even if they don't have equal resources, as long as everybody's got the equal opportunity to present or to consume what they're interested in, I think most of the time people are pretty satisfied. But when, like you said, when it's just nothing but superhero movies,
yeah,
a whole population is like, I can't stand superhero movies.
well, and Aubrey and company also do a good chat on how some of these movies are derivative of each other, but sometimes you like the movie that is kind of the knockoff of the other movie. There's plenty of college movies and war movies that have come out lately, and I'm just like, it's just well-worn territory. I just seen too many of those. And then there's other ones, everyone's like, oh, I like it better than that other one. I'm like, well, is it because it's old, or is it just because, whatever, you do you.
Yeah, and back in, man, I would say I don't know, maybe the '90s. That used to be such a compliment when you would say, like, man, he's like a Bruce Willis type of actor, or
Yeah, an
that's like a
instant label.
Tarantino type of movie. Like that was a real compliment, and now it's just so derivative. You're just like, man, that guy's like a Bruce Willis guy, and you're like, oh.
Right. How the mighty have fallen, and it's just, it gets a little just sad that you do have to compare it to something. I was starting up an audio drama with Crime Underworld, and there were some assassins in it, and instantly I was like, well, if I have to compare it to Pulp Fiction or John Wick, will you give us some extra money to fund this? Even though
Yeah,
it's not hip like that, it's not stylized, it's just dark.
yeah.
In fact,
It's
violence isn't even the part of it.
Yeah, I was gonna say it's the part of those movies that are making people interested in them is not the part you're actually trying to convince people are the same or similar. So
Yeah, everybody steals from everyone after a while, and I guess all I ask is just do the theft very well to where it feels like a labor of love instead of a forced homage.
yeah, for sure. And it's almost like and you talk about the critical divide. That same thing is in that homage of like it's so easy to fall on one side or the other. Like, oh man, they're just trying to. This is just a Pulp Fiction knockoff, or like, hey man, this is like a tribute to Pulp Fiction. So, and
Yeah.
it's always in the eye of the beholder too. So it's not like you can tell people like, hey, this project we're doing, it's a lot like Pulp Fiction, and get them to go, oh, okay, they're going to consume it and go,
Completely authentic.
they're going to pick a side, yeah.
Altogether, when you had to first start up using mics and picking your topics, for me it was kind of easy, where I was just like, hey, setting my hours, setting this much time, putting this much time on the sound quality, and better luck next time if we didn't get that detailed. when you're going halfway through the chat, how much do you often feel like, okay, we're coming up a little short on substance here? We need like 10 more minutes of an intro here, one more trivia here.
I think for us, most of the actors we look at have such a deep, like they just have such, like 30, 40, 50 years in the business. And so we're never lacking in content of outside of the actor. If anything, we try to get through that a little bit faster than in anything. And so I think
Yeah, quick.
yeah, the for us, sometimes we get stuck in the mud where there's a movie that we either all love that we all want to talk about, or there's a movie that we hate that we all want to talk about. And like you said earlier, I think we do try to avoid just unnecessarily beating up bad movies. And then
Sometimes you got to call a spade a spade. I find it's even funnier when it's a movie that you're like, you love that, and that's formulaic. But that one you're giving a pass. Okay, I don't know anyone anymore. I don't even know me anymore. Why was it okay? I do this with my mother all the time. She hates horror movies, but X-Files, that's okay.
Yeah.
Assassins, oh, they kill people for money. Oh, but Leon the Professional, very artistic, very suspenseful. We're all a little inconsistent after a while.
A lot of those times it's when you first got introduced to that movie, the time and place for some reason unlocks something. Like there's some rom-coms. I'm just not generally a romantic comedy person, but there's some that I'm just like, it just hit me I caught that at the right time, at the right place in my life. And I'm like, I really like that movie.
It was very diverse, or maybe it was just very well spoken instead of what forced gags or romance can we insert in between the format. I mean, you brought up Ray Donovan a few different times. I find it interesting how now it used to be every show had to be more edgier than the other. Oh, look what they did on Stars' Power. Oh, look what the Breaking Bad saga did this week. But now I think everyone's so oversaturated with buckets of gore and demented plot twists. And Yellowstone, I'm looking at you. I think everyone's now at this point is like, just do whatever. Stop trying to ape each other.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's what I'm most nervous about with entertainment right now is almost all the good movies we've ever talked about have good writing.
Yeah.
And all of those, I think all of those projects that end up being good or bad, people get tricked into going, well, it was because they had this amount of gore, or they had this many jokes, or they had this much
the content versus the substance.
But it's all substance. And so those well-written shows are good. I mean, it doesn't matter how good an actor is. If it's a poorly written project, it's a poor project.
Oh, absolutely. There's plenty of early 80s and 90s movies you're never going to get Denzel or Ed Harris to talk about. They don't want to talk about it. They're like, glad you like it. I did my job. I want nothing to do with it.
Yeah, it's so I think the writing has always been so important, and so it just concerns me how long it's going to take for good TV shows and good movies to get back on track.
Right, pages equal minutes, and I think that's why I think we even resonate more with the podcast when someone's doing a variety talk show or a political dissect or a social topic based podcast. You're pretty much even just figuring out everyone knows why they like what they like, dislike anything. It's a matter of, do they know how to communicate that other than it sucks?
That's easier.
I kind of just go back to the essay format. Tell them what you're about to say it, and then reflect on what you just talked about. Boom.
Yeah, and I think one of the things about having a group podcast, while it's sometimes difficult to have clean dialogue and authentic back and forth, I think if you can get into a situation where you're like, hey, you guys, this is the movie I reviewed. Here's what I think of it. What do you guys think? And then all of a sudden, I think you're really authentic and genuine discourse happens. And that's fun to do. Whereas if you're doing that podcast in a vacuum, even if it's just two different people, there's a tendency to agree just to agree, or to disagree just to disagree.
Oh yeah, James is good at that too. He's like, "Hey, this movie hit me hard. I don't know what it is about it, but this might be divisive because of the ending." And I feel like the ending is the worst thing for any movie because we hear about all the producers tinkering. In fact, some podcasts now I'm noticing were kind of more free flowing, but once they became corporate, they kind of got a little too over marketed and organized to where you're just like, I'm not really hearing their voice anymore.
Does that go back to the old school, like what would they do? They would like
Oh,
when
the
they would show a movie to
teleprompter.
people.
Yeah.
Now they'd show a movie to people, and then they get feedback from them.
Oh, yeah. The
Test
pre
audience, no.
Oh yeah, it's something like that, preview screenings, and half the time they don't even tell them what it's about, and it's like, well, that might be part of the discourse. They don't know what
Yeah,
they're in for, so therefore, is it a 5 hour period piece? Is it a 2 hour, suspenseful drama, or if you don't, sometimes you do have to tell them like the basics. Just don't give away the
yeah.
ending.
So is that kind of what's happening with these podcasts? Is these
A little bit. I'm
more
noticing
produced
some.
ones are coming back going, people don't like
Absolutely.
this. Okay.
But my dad and I, we're big biohackers, and we listen to Dave Asprey once in a while. And sometimes we get a little confused because sometimes he'll promote another sponsor, and then
Hmm.
you never hear a follow up. It's like, did they have a falling out, or was it just for that bot ad space, or does
Yeah.
he personally not like it, but he just wanted to make a connection? I don't. That's his business, but it's a little confusing at times.
Yeah.
Looking at some of the Texas-based podcasts, I'm actually really intrigued how uh, there's Progress Texas, which reflects on progressives in Texas. There's a bunch of wine and true crime and even just other topical ones that are here, but not so many geeky ones.
Yeah. Well, if you're a wine podcast, man, I was down in the hill country this past weekend. Within I think it was a 20-mile stretch, we counted 30 vineyards, distilleries, or breweries.
Wow.
And right outside of Johnson City, and I'm like, man alive, that would be a serious undertaking to be able to enjoy all of those establishments. So a wine podcast would do well down that way.
I'm sure they had to travel there. I mean, I'm not. I think anyone can forgive a podcast if, in fact, you are going to have to do a lot of traveling, and it
Hmm.
might be an extra weight. So then, but it's kind of also a little concerning to me how with Patreons, half the time people are just doing pranks on each other. Like, we want you to review this because we know you'll hate it. I'm like, well, come on. Why not just stop the pranks and just do a legit, I need your take on this?
That's funny. Is the and pardon my ignorance, but is the Patreon? I know I've heard like comedians that have that. Are there like true just podcasts that are well known that also do a Patreon account?
I have seen a lot of different movies and TV ones. I'm really impressed by the music score ones because often it just means it was really no different than an extra Apple subscription. You get an extra video interview or just bloopers or just an after show, so to speak.
Okay.
uh, I think the Young Turks had one at that political podcast. I might need to check on that one again.
Okay.
uh, it is interesting how sometimes that's where I'm a little confused on because it seems like sometimes people want to launch a Patreon before they're ready to actually provide extra content on there.
Yeah. Yeah. I couldn't imagine well, number one, I couldn't imagine anybody paying for our podcast. And then number two, I couldn't imagine having a fan base big enough where a Patreon would make sense.
Yeah, you would really have to love the numbers and do some extra marketing, I guess. I will applaud you though. I'll be there day one.
So
Five,
thank
10
you,
extra
man.
bucks a week. Uh, Speaking of music, there's apparently a World of Texas music podcast, which interviews recording artists and record producers and engineers. So
That would be interesting.
I
That
will
would
have
be
to check
interesting.
that one out. My my feed I'm looking at is on FeedSpot, so I think that's cool. Uh, but all throughout the Austin, Houston, and San Antonio and Dallas areas, it seems like there's a podcast all for out there, but for whatever reason, I don't really see as many people talking about where they're from or anything. It's like we're not stalkers. Just be proud of your heritage. Are you here or you're not?
they're trying to keep it on the low key, I guess.
I guess. I mean, don't get
Uh,
me wrong. It can still get annoying. I personally find it funny when people do accents of Texas people because I have seen people who are dressed up as Rangers or who are gun nuts. So I'm like, yeah, it's really not that far from the truth. uh,
yeah.
there's a
One
few.
one Texas podcast that I listened or that I've listened to a few times. I'm trying to think of the name of it. It's like the luckiest man in Texas or something like that. It's the it's an uncle of one of my really good friends who tells all these just crazy stories, and it's really interesting. Pulling up my list right now.
I do love just deep dive stories because sometimes they'll use a very unusual attention getter. And you're like, I don't know why that worked compared to someone else who's probably just BSing or blowing off steam before they start up. Some people they got that special voice that lulls you in.
Mm-hmm.
I call it
It's called the best storyteller in Texas
the best storyteller in Texas. Okay, wow.
with Kent Hance. And he's a guy that's worked in, I want to say he's worked at some of the bigger universities, and he's worked in politics, and he's had quite the storied career, and he's always got a really interesting title that gets your attention.
Oh man, he's got one in Louisiana Purchase. This is a good find, sir.
Yeah, you'll enjoy it. You'll enjoy it. I've not been able to meet him yet, but I hope to at some point catch up with him and talk to him about enjoying his podcast.
Absolutely. And more often than not, do you find everyone's pretty much willing to do a collab? I very rarely get ones who are kind of like, yeah, we don't really do that, or we're shy.
Yeah, I think so. I think the only the only concern is just always like, well, I don't really know anybody. I don't really know them. I don't know their audience well enough, and for me at least, I should say, I sometimes just want to stick to what I know. So I actually don't do a lot of them, but I don't usually say no either.
Well, no, it's fine. Just set, and kind of like with the podcast to begin with, set your formula, and there's yes and there's everything else. There's plenty of times where if for whatever reason, if you just feel like it's just too much work, that's a excuse in and of itself. Is like, yeah, I feel like this is just eating up too much time, and I'm walking into a wall. I don't have anything for you.
Yeah, but most of the time it's just a matter of if you're not on the production side of it, so you're not having to do the editing or you're
Oh
not having
yeah,
to finish it up. A lot of times it's just a matter of, hey, do I have an extra hour and a half to talk about cool stuff? And most of the time people do and are willing to.
absolutely. And if it becomes too much work, and you might have to regroup or just say, hey, we got to do some trade off here.
Yeah, I think one of the cool things that's interesting for me as it relates to the podcast, fascination is a lot of times, man, this is what NPR has been doing forever.
Oh yes.
And so it's really cool because I grew up a fan of those like 3 to 10 minute NPR spots where people would talk about a very specific topic. So
Oh yeah.
I always appreciate the fact that now everybody's doing that and everybody's finding an interest in that.
I still miss the This American Life intro. But yeah, no, it is a missed opportunity. I think that's where I realized, hey, you can have a very blunt dialogue and interview people who you kind of wish would even just speak at more schools, like a college professor or a political scientist who is just able to read between the lines, and those, it's a great chat when you want to look up every book they've authored,
Uh-huh.
and
Yes.
uh, but yeah, NPR I think is a good. Everyone should listen to NPR, even if you don't agree with the commentary. You should still just listen to just the formatting, and it's like, how do they get in and get out? Because
Yeah, it's always we talked about writing earlier. I wouldn't say it's well written, but it's always authentic from
yes,
a content perspective, and it's always efficient. I mean, it may be a long interview, but
hmm
it's still there's a word economy that exists in an NPR piece that most things don't have.
absolutely, it's a rarity in that it's not even really how it flows so much as how it's delivered.
Yeah, yeah.
We'll return after these messages.
Hey, it's Brent Pope, the host of Breakfast with Brent Pope. You've seen me on some of your favorite TV shows saying things like, "Give it up, Jimmy. You got to sink this putt to win." On Breakfast with Brent Pope, I sit down with guests from the entertainment world, and we do it all over breakfast. Or should I say Brentfast? Every week on Brentfast, you get inside Hollywood info and tips, great breakfast recs and foodie debates. Most of all, you get the most delightful 30 minutes of your week. So dig in. It's Brentfast time. Listen at Brentfast.com, Apple Podcasts, or wherever fine podcasts are found.
Do you ever find yourself thinking about who would win in a fight between Goku and Superman? Hi, I'm James Gavsey, and on the Who Would Win show, me and my co-host Ray ignore anything important happening in the outside world and debate fictional battles between characters from comics, movies, and video games.
We got a new show every week, and almost always am I the winner.
Yeah, not true, Ray.
In the past, we've discussed such matches as Captain America versus Darth Vader, Solid Snake versus the Iron Giant, classic matchups like RoboCop versus Terminator, and even the Muppets versus Sesame Street.
That one was crazy. So if you're a fan of geek culture and love a spirited debate, check out the Who Would Win show wherever you get your podcasts, or check us out at whowouldwinshow.com.
Yeah, long time no see.
Hey.
How you been?
Tired. I just got in from work. I just put my hair up, and it says Lucretia Stewart. It's because we do Zoom meetings for our students. And
Oh, there you go.
I think I'm still logged into her Zoom.
Hey, use what you got at your disposal. So joining us for this part of the chat is Keeshia Lacy from the Random Horror Show. Welcome.
Hey.
Ooh. Hey, Keisha.
All right, so we've just been kind of circling around on storytelling and everything. Would love to hear your side of things. How did you get into podcasting, and why do you think it's interesting how anyone can do it, but not everyone's cut out for it?
I mean the cooking. Sorry.
Well, that's blooper number one. Let's not. I'll give you 10 minutes.
I always eat on like camera and stuff, and I got
Why?
I got a commercial to shoot tomorrow where I work at. It's a local regional commercial. But
I look forward to it. But
yeah.
either way, what is it about podcasting that you think is kind of it's a whole different thing to consider? Like, to even put it in the same window as radio is even kind of complex.
Yeah. But back to your question, which you asked earlier. I started the Random Horror Show because I have a love and a passion for like horror, and horror has been like a part of my life ever since I was a child. It actually helped me out like during, a lot of childhood trauma. Not COVID. Not COVID. I think I would, maybe a few people during COVID had a lot of fun because there was less people out there.
All right.
But yeah, I did kind of start like at the end, the tail end of COVID, and it's a lot of hard work, and it's just not for in and everybody. You do like what I do is like just basically just do a lot of horror reviews, a lot of knickknacks, and have guests on there. And
yeah, you've had a lot of horror authors on there, which is interesting because it's cool to help out the little guy. People who are just starting versus people who've been around for a while.
Right. I know when I started, it was just more of like helping out my throat chakra being blocked, it just always, I feel that like, I didn't even imagine that like a lot of people do listen to it. And I thought I was just like just going on and just like being myself and nobody's not gonna listen to me. And then I start getting people like coming to me and say like, hey, I listen to you. You're pretty great. Like, oh my gosh, you're crazy. But I feel that like
Thanks, I guess.
yeah, appreciate it. Thank you. No, I really do. I love it that people do say like I listen to your podcast and stuff, and I'm like, thank you so much, appreciate it. And that keeps me going. But it's just not built in for in and everybody because when I first got started in it, you're gonna do it for I do it for like passion and I do it for fun. It did get a little bit too much for me, got very overwhelming. I started to treat it like a job. So that's where I had to like pull back. And I did have like those reservations of like not doing it ever. But I was going through something, my grandmother passed away and stuff. So when I started to like kind of see that people like, hey, can you review this? Can you do that? And I'm just like, you know what? There's my calling. Let
Sky's
me
the
go
limit.
ahead. And sky is unlimited. It's limitless. And so I feel that you have to have like a passion for it. You got to have like a lot of research and subject matter in it.
Yes.
It is like people will think like, okay, I see this podcast, it's like doing very well, have like all these like listeners and this it's monetized and everything else. It takes a lot of work for that, especially to monetize. I like building my stuff organically.
Yes.
Because I feel that if you want to do like that whole like I'm gonna buy viewers and all that stuff like that, they wouldn't appreciate you. So there's such thing as being like people that do quality than just doing mediocre stuff. And
Very
I say it very heavily. And I edit myself out.
It's very true. You got to make sure there's something crucial to it that is legit. It can't just all be, hey, and it's a stage act, and we do this after the fact when the curtain comes down. But I also, there's been a lot of great conventions that even help people become better podcasters every year that I noticed are held annually. There was in 2022 in the fall, there was a true crime convention fan expo here in Dallas. And they were able to record it and air it on some of those different podcasts, including No Body, No Crime. And I dug it because these guys were like, true crime alone is already oversaturated. Here's how you become a better true crime podcaster. Connect with the people, don't over dramatize it. And they had just some very helpful pointers that you could point to any kind of genre or any kind of radio or podcast or broadcasting formula. I just loved how they're just like, and if there's a current trial ongoing with this current case, cease immediately. You do not want to tamper or affect the jury.
That's correct.
You also don't want to do a disservice to anybody or find yourself in legal hot water. You're trying to be much like these other history podcasts. You're trying to just tell people about stuff that's on the record and maybe if you can't get in contact with anyone, maybe you still reach out to a professor or some legal advisor. I love it when even someone is also just trying to just say, hey, we've heard about this story that no one really talks about, but you should want to even just know about it just as a study of the human condition and how toxic we can be as a society.
Right.
And how you can avoid being a shithead like those guys.
Hey, I'm constantly striving to not be a shithead, so
you're fine.
I'll always take assistance in that.
My issue growing up was sometimes I would be too much of a smartass to where I just sounded douchey, and I just had to stop because I would get riled up when other people would do it to me, and I was like, well, it goes both ways.
Sometimes I think the people get drowned by other people. Like I don't want somebody else's opinion completely. I want some context. I want some stories, like
context.
I want to know, like, what else is this writer written? What else has this character been in? And so the opinions alone sometimes I think I have a hard time listening to podcasts that are just strictly opinionated.
Yes. And you want to also just give a perspective, like where can you access this medium? Why was this title discontinued? It shouldn't just be streaming or not. Okay, we only do anything that's streaming. Well, then you're already out of content.
Yeah.
Even more so, like even talking about like why did this split a fan base, this topic? Why was this a historical monument other than the history books and Wikipedia page claiming it is,
Yeah.
Well, to throw some light at that, or an example of that, Cam, it's shocking to me. We've covered probably, I would say, at least a half dozen, if not more, movies whose release date was affected because of Columbine.
Yes. There's been a lot
I
of.
remember that.
It was either that or 9/11. There's been so many movies where you're just like, it didn't intend that, but all it takes is an awful event in history, and your movie's dead on arrival.
Yeah,
or it might actually be a good movie.
Or you're going to wait 2 years. You have writer's strike.
Writer's strike right now. I'm still the one in 2007 sticks out like a sore thumb because a lot of movies and TV suffered there.
Heroes suffered a lot. I like that show, Heroes, but when the writer's strike happened in 2007, Dune. I was waiting for Dune.
Yes.
And I'm like, yes, they pushed it back because of the whole writer's strike.
Really?
It was supposed to come out this year around December.
I keep forgetting that they pushed it back. It's more recent, but yeah. I like that other podcasters are being conscious about it. I have some that have been trying to not talk about more recent stuff because they don't want to impact the Writers Guild or SAG in some negative way. So I'm glad that people are just being considerate now. It doesn't seem like consideration was really a thing half the time. Everybody had to just come out with something now.
Yeah. Well, and there also might be some folks that don't want to talk about current events because they want their podcast or their product to be consumable whenever. So a year from now, it would sound the same. I know we tend to not talk a lot about current events on ours only because since we're so actor focused, I would like for somebody to check out the Nev Campbell episode 3 years from now and have it feel like it was recently recorded. So kind of products can stand up, I think, over time. Time doesn't affect products when you're not spending a lot of time on current events, but when you're talking about the impact good writing has on TV and movies, it's hard to not discuss.
It'll overlap in some capacity. Sometimes they'll check it out just because of the keyword in it, and then that's where it gets cryptic to me. It's like, are you listening to it because of the name in the title versus you actually wanted to hear someone's take on this?
Yeah.
Thanks? Question mark.
Yeah, I don't even get into, like you say, current events or like political stuff. Now, when I did start off, it was a lot of stuff, but I didn't go like really like heavy and deep, but I had something that is relatable, has a nuance to like the movie I'm reviewing.
Yeah.
It's different. You may hear me like have an opinion.
The social commentary was diverse enough.
Just have that diversity in that. And then I just stick to, you hear my jokes, you may hear me talk about my childhood or something that's like a nuance to the film or whatever. But I feel that like if you talk more and more of like current political events, everything else like that, year or two later, they're gonna be like, oh, gross. They're gonna be like grossed out by it. But
it'll
just
get gross.
as long as you stay like on the main thing of the focus, why this movie, I like it. Why this movie kind of sucks, but I try to be as more of like, you're going to hear my perspective, but it's more of like, I'm giving you, the audience, a chance to watch it. It may be good to you. It may suck balls. You know, it may be okay. But you have that open interpretation for your audience to listen and say, okay, let me go check it out. You know what I'm saying? So I think that's like when I started to like get more and more into it. And I was like, you know what? Let me be kind of pretty fair with this film, with this movie, how I look at it, do a deep dive breakdown and everything else, just to give everybody a chance.
Absolutely. You can pretty much vet right then and there who's ready to talk about something versus who's just stuck up. Oh my God, he had a different opinion. I'm like, yes, he had a different opinion. He's not cut from the same cloth, or he's talking about something from a different era. So maybe it didn't resonate with him. I don't know. Maybe it does suck nowadays and we're wrong. I don't know.
Anytime I review a movie or I talk about a movie, I want to treat it, I want somebody else to experience it. So I usually try to, even if it's, I'm going to watch that movie because it's so bad. I want people to look at it that way, because as we all know, I mean, a massive amount of work goes into making these TV shows, these movies. And I never try to be disrespectful to the artists that made them. Even
give a disclaimer saying, hey, it's an okay Sunday night movie. It's not a Friday movie like it intended. Or rent it for $2 from Amazon, but don't pay more than 10. But then again, someone might want something stupid for $10. That's on them. I don't know. I don't get it. Buy the ticket. Maybe don't take the ride.
Speaking of that right there, you know, there's a lot, like you said, there's a lot of like stuff that goes into the movie. The writing, the filmmaking, photography, cinema, all of that.
We fill it with just the recording. You're like, no, we got off topic there. Oh, fuck. I need this guy back in the studio.
So, you know, you have like all your different budgets, your low budget, your indie budget, you know, all of that right there. But it's still, they put money into this. But I did this review. It's called The Confessions of a Time Traveler, a man from like 3000 or something like that. And I just literally like trashed the movie. But it was funny because I was like, look, he actually did do this movie.
He went to film school.
A lot of work in it, and I was like, I know it's like this, the way how it goes. I was like, this dude coming from 3000, and the way how he's like acting and stuff, because it was like set during a pandemic, and I just ripped it, but I had fun with it. But I actually liked it because this dude had like probably at least like $3,000 of making this movie. And he did it, and he put it out there, and that was like the highest like podcast like rating, like #1 that I had. And I never like knock down anybody, but I just had to rip on it for fun. But
he invited his colleagues to check it out. There you go.
Yeah, but I wanted everybody to check this movie out. I really did, because this dude actually did like put a lot of work into it, and the budget, you know, it was like $2,000-3,000. I mean, the same way with like Thanksgiving. What is it, like 7,000?
Oh my God,
or something like that. $7,000 or $10,000 that this guy
Samurai
did.
Cop.
But I love Thanksgiving. I love turkey. I love turkey. He's so funny. Gobble gobble, motherfucker. So corny. The jokes are corny, but I love Thanksgiving.
That's why I have respect for Charles Band of Full Moon. He was able to make all these made-for-TV, directed-video, and independent movies all look somewhat theatrical. But I just love, I think in a 26 interview, he was like at a convention interviewing all these other genre favorites like Sam Raimi and Larry Cohen. And he was just like, and by the way, guys, if you want me to stop making these movies, stop buying my shit. And I was like, perfect. Yeah, I think we got to learn by now. Stop buying Charles's killer doll cookie killer movies. Yeah.
I love it.
The dude has a great sense of humor. I think he's another one because he's a family-owned business and everything. He always had that mentality: just be a smartass and make an easygoing B pitcher. And I think that's what took me out of so many independent movies. Was so many people were doing like deliberately bad ones. I'm like, no, 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 you're missing the point here. Oh,
Getting
They just
getting
ran with it.
they ran with it.
getting back to Thanksgiving, wasn't didn't they skip the sequel as the joke? So it goes from Thanksgiving 1 to Thanksgiving 3.
I don't know. I didn't have to ask Keisha there. I didn't know there was more than one. Wasn't it
Yeah, there is
in
more than
Grindhouse?
one. It's one he goes into the future, got a ray gun or something. I haven't checked that one out because I'm still stuck on the first one. But there is, I think it's like two of them, two more, one or two more, something
Okay.
like that. But yeah, I think they did skip a sequel,
Yeah.
something like that. And they did like this Terminator type
Oh my god! So it was
movie.
like,
I like that.
was
I
it
love that.
was it like bad CGI sharks where they keep just reminding you, by the way, we're about to waste your time. We're gonna have fun doing it.
I haven't watched it yet, so I gotta
Uh,
be mentally prepared for that because I'm still stuck on the first Thanksgiving. So I gotta be mentally prepared for that.
Hey, set your priorities. It's also fortunate that a lot of them are on streaming, so you win either way. It's like I don't have
Yeah.
to get annoyed that I spent that much time on something that's deliberately schlocky.
Do you have Shutter on
I used to
on your cable service?
I use the AMC app sometimes if I want to.
Yeah, the Shutter channel, and I use YouTube TV, so that I love the Shutter channel on there because they have almost all of their movies streaming.
Perfect.
So you can just pick the most compelling title that night, and that's a lot of fun to watch.
Right?
I kind of fell into the Tubi rabbit hole.
Mm,
They
easy to do. Easy to do.
it's really easy to do. And by the way, there is a guy that lives he lives in Tyler, Texas, and he came out with a movie, actually two movies. And so the third one is being shown in our local theater. It's called
Oh, lovely.
Parole Money, and they're both on Tubi. So it highlights, showcase Tyler, Texas, and the storyline is about an FBI agent that's trying to get his kids back, but
Oh my god.
he can't get a house, so he has to do like he has to go on the
Shady
wrong
stuff.
side of the law,
Man.
to get a house and for his kids and stuff. And then I got to thinking about the whole plot, and I was like, if you're an FBI agent, you will have really good credit to get a house. They just don't
Right?
accept people with like bad credit if you're an FBI agent.
Yeah, one mini rewrite might have made that better. Yeah.
But I think he just like ran with it. But I interviewed him and stuff. I thought that was pretty neat and everything. That
It was a twisted concept, at least.
yeah,
That's intriguing.
it really was. But he like used a lot of local people, local actors. When you're in doing filmmaking like that, you can like use local businesses, and that's
Mm.
money and everything, and that's giving them a lot of like advertisement and
Some extra
business.
exposure. As long as the person's organized and not just in love with themselves, that's where I tune out of an indie movie where it's like, okay, I don't care where it was filmed on a camcorder or phone or actual film. I'm more concerned, like, what do you have something to say? And sometimes I'll notice some of those indie films are really rough because the transitions are they're just not very interesting. You're like, okay, I feel like this was okay back in the day in the 90s, but now we just don't have that attention anymore.
Yeah. So
You're ripping off Heat and Training Day. Okay, this is not going to last long.
yeah. So the third one, it has he like promoted. It says he has 78 actors and actresses, and like I love that, but no shade. It's like you naming everybody that's an extra.
Yeah.
But I'm gonna stop right there. But I support him.
Yeah, it's interesting. I'm gonna check it out when we get offline.
Alrighty.
It's called Parole Money 1 and 2, and it's on Tubi. And my boss is on there too. She's in the second movie. A couple of people that I went to school with, they're in the movie too. So.
Wow. Okay.
I love that.
Sounds fun. Thanks for the recommend. Now I'm gonna let you guys plug your shows.
You can go first.
Keisha, I'll let you promote your shows.
Okay, I'm sorry. I was like, oh, you gotta forgive me. I was like, I just went in the wrong way for a second. Well, the Random Horror Show is on Spotify, Anchor FM, Apple, and any I can't even talk. I'm tired.
I can tell.
But it's like it's actually on like every podcast, platform. Yes. You can also reach me on Instagram at The Random Horror Show, Facebook, and also if anybody has Threads, you can reach me on Threads. Also, shout out, say hello to me because I actually speak in complete sentences and have a really genuine conversation than I do on Instagram, which is like 2 or 3 words, and then I just like buzz off like that.
I couldn't tell at all.
If you want me to review a movie, if you like to be a guest or review your books or anything else like that, contact me at therandomhorrorshow@gmail.com.
Game on. All right, Craig, hit us with your best shot.
All right. Well, the Munsons at the Movie podcast, I mean, I just assume it's everywhere you can find podcasts. I don't actually know.
It's on Podbean, Spotify.
Podbean, Spotify, all of that. Google, Podcast,
all that stuff. Yeah, I've never had anybody come back to me and tell me they've had a hard time finding it. So I think it's wherever you want. And if you're a fan of actors, and check out, we've had. Well, what was the last episode, Cam? Was it 88? 87? So we've covered almost 100 actors at this point.
You're getting up there.
And we've probably covered one that anybody listening to this has enjoyed. So go check it out and pick one of those actors you like, and
absolutely,
and let us know how wrong we got it. We're happy to hear
that. What's that podcast again?
It's called Munsons at the Movies.
Yeah.
Yes, sir.
Spell for me.
Huh?
Can you spell it for me?
MUNSON.
Go ahead, Cam.
MUNSON.
Okay.
That's their name, Munsons.
Munsons at the Movies.
At the movies, yep.
Okay.
And we have a good time doing it. We always have on a guest, and Cam's joined us 4 or 5 times now.
Yeah, I'm going on that.
Yeah, so it's always a good time. It is a deep dive, though. I mean, most episodes are over 90 minutes long, so we go from start to current, and in some cases finish for actors, and we try to learn a lot about them.
I'm surprised we make it out alive.
Nice.
Tell me about it.
And for those listening, Jacked Up Review Show is everywhere. We, again, are a variety show, but more importantly, it's if we got someone to say, we're going to make an episode about it. We're not doing any more just like loose conversations. We got to have a purpose to the chat. And I think that's why we've all had to learn the hard way too, is like, okay, we had something to talk about, but we kind of just got a little lost in the tunnel there.
Yeah.
It was too much me time. Not me. Yeah, not enough.
That's good that you don't have like too much me time, because that's the reason why I had to like get guests or like somebody there, because I'm I'm tired of hearing my freaking voice. I need somebody here to like spice it up. I mean, I know how to keep it spicy. I need somebody spicier.
Or a different spice, at least.
A different spice. And I started doing random horror trivia questions, and I have the most craziest ones.
You go for some real rarities. I'm like, I wonder how many people know that one, but Yeah, I had some martial artists and music pals, and I was like, yeah, but there's too much just dead silence in between the ego stroking, and I need more than that too. I need to. There's a beginning, middle, and end, not just hey, check this out.
Check it out. Awkward pause.
Yeah, maybe leave it to your manager to do the check it out part. I don't know. It is what it is. We all learn. We all do. I mean, as long as we're growing, I find that every year we do something that there's always at least 5 things I check off. Not doing that again. Gonna do that differently. I'll rework that. I need some work.
Correct.
So, it's okay to be critical, but I think a lot of people don't know the in between. Okay, what do you think? Oh, not what I wanted. Well, of course it wasn't what you wanted. It was their take.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Well, and there's also we talked about it earlier. It's just there's such a danger of just beating something up for entertainment.
Yes,
And
too much hate watching.
It's just such a shallow assessment of something, and even explaining why you don't like it. You know, I try to stay away from all the opinions, and I try to get into, hey, here's what I learned about this project. Did you know that it was shot in Tyler, Texas? Like, that caught my attention immediately. I'm like, holy shit, this may be the worst project ever, but I'm interested.
There you go.
Yes.
Did you know it was filmed in only 5 takes? What? Okay.
Cool. It shows, but cool.
Right. It's not ready for prime time, but pretty cool.
Yeah.
Yeah. Did you know it had its premiere at Fangoria and everyone saw it even though they hated it? Oh, whoa, okay. Sold to the highest bidder.
I got a question for like all both of y'all.
Sure.
Have y'all like done like cons to like promote yourselves? Because I met like I've like connected with some guys in Houston when I went to Houston for the horror fest down there, film fest.
Nice.
And I was like sitting there and I was like, they're promoting their podcast? I was like, I think I need to do this. So I'm like, okay, I'm inspired by them. So I'm like, I'm going to start small. I'm going to have some merch and everything else. And I'm
if I do it, I'm going to make sure we can go with a bunch of buddies together so we can all kind of share the love with each other. But the closest I've done so far is I was printing out some Vista print cards and just dropping them off at comic book shops. I didn't get any hits yet, but I was like, hey, free advertising, just put it out there.
Right. So I was like thinking, I mean, they had that nice little setup, the little table. It wasn't like super big or super little, but like you do notice them, and I actually do follow them. And I was like, oh my gosh, I was like, you can do this? And I was like, okay, I'm inspired. Okay, let's do this.
Interesting. Yeah, we definitely haven't put that much work into it, but it is an interesting idea.
I'll buy your merch.
Right. But I have like vendor before for beauty because I've been in the beauty industry for like 16 years and I'm also an instructor. So it's a lot of work. And yes, I'm going to have to like drag somebody's ass, about 2 or 3 of them. People, you get your butts right here. You help me right now. I'm going to have my son to do it because my son, we did a fashion show and he was too busy looking at the women like going down the catwalk.
Put us back 100 more years.
I know, and some of them were in their 40s, and he was like, God, they're so fun. But I know, Mom, it's like they're around the same age as you, but man, they're so hot. I was like,
that's really funny.
Yeah, but I have to have somebody that's really responsible if I'm going to do this. But I really want to do it. I really do.
But you monetized. Are you guys both monetized with your podcast?
I am eligible. I have not figured that part out as much. At most, I have made maybe 50 cents. I'm not.
I actually monetize, and it kind of changed some stuff on Spotify. So I actually have like gotten paid, not a lot, but it's more than 50 cents. So,
you know, Podbean had a new thing that I got to check into and see if how that works, but I think they changed the format for
Really?
linking up with Apple Podcasts. So, in fact,
Yeah, they have. They really have. And I'm on Podbean too. So
in
it
fact,
does some kind of linkage where it uploads to Podbean.
I'll share it on Instagram now. Actually, I'll just share this real fast. This cool article that they shared that I gotta make sure to check off all the boxes on.
Yeah, we've actually never really had a discussion about whether or not we wanted to monetize. And so
How would you even
I don't know.
divide it?
Yeah, I don't know what the rest of the guys would want to do. But at the same time, it's also not why we're doing it, right? If this was
Yeah.
a source of income, then it would certainly be something we'd want to look at. But
All I ask is it better not be too much work. Like, if all I got to worry about, hey, there's these sound bloopers to cut out or this enhancement of this dialogue, that's okay. But if it's, because I see other podcasters, they're flat out ripping a Blu-ray onto their hard drive. I'm like, that's too much work for me. I'm sorry.
yeah,
Just for that one quick audio clip that you're going to repeat on the soundboard.
I got a guy that did it for my intro for $50.
Really?
Yeah, he's toking that. He actually been producing like podcasts for other people since like 2007.
Oh, cool.
Yeah.
How about
Located
that?
in Tyler, Texas.
There you go.
Tyler, man.
Yeah. The rose was like the rose capital of the world.
I know there's a really cool state park there. I know that much.
Well, I will check it out.
Oh, what is it? Like is the Tyler State Park?
Yeah.
Oh, okay. It's like on Highway 14. Yeah, I know what you're talking about. Pretty cool. It is. It's a pretty cool park. It really is.
Good hiking down there.
Oh.
You got that right. Good hiking. You can mountain bike there too. And you can see like people just like just passing you up while you're hiking. They're like, move out the way. And you're like, okay.
Damn.
But they have some really good hiking trails out there. Very good hiking trails. I used to do a lot of hiking, lots and lots of hiking, then until work and just being busy.
Yeah.
Nacogdoches actually has some good hiking trails also. There are a lot of good hiking trails down there too.
I will have to check that out.
Yeah, you do. Just go down to, we call it Nasty Roaches, but it's actually not good. But my alma mater, Stephen F. Austin State University, Axum Jacks, but they have like some great hiking trails down there. They have a zip line place down there where you can go and zip line. There's another zip line place. If y'all are zip liners or you interested in it, it's a place called Gator and Friends. It's in Greenwood, Louisiana. It's just right outside on the border of Texas when you're going into Shreveport. You take I think it's like the first or the second exit. It's like off of I-20. And you can zip line. It has like this like really cool zoo, have all these like different exotic animals. And you get the zip line over like the gator, like pond, lake, or whatever. So when I was zip lining stuff, I was like waiting for the alligator from Lake Plaza to like come and just like jump up. But I'm high up there, and they got used to people doing it. They're like, they're zip lining.
Yeah. I've seen far too many movies to feel comfortable doing that.
There you go.
I I had that fear too, but I just was like tossing, just like flipping and doing all kind of weird, like acrobatic. I'm like sticking my leg out like I'm Superman and stuff like that, zip lining. Then I'm looking down. I was like, wow, I can like fall down and like die. But all right, this is cool.
Another day at the office. That's wild. Very wild. Well, this has been great, gang. And
again, that gang. Thank you, Cameron. Thank you, Cam.
Is that how I sound?
No, I'm just exaggerating.
I sound like I'm doing the worst Barack Obama impression. People, listen to me. The truth.
Oh my God.
And nothing but The truth.
I'm dead ass on that.
That's right. Alrighty. Well, this was eye-opening, and I couldn't enjoy this more.
Yeah, it's fun chopping it up with you guys.
We'll keep picking each other's brains. If there's any just giant event that I know is just within a reasonable distance, I will let you guys know. Even if it's the most mundane thing, I'll be like, hey, that could be interesting.
Yeah, I'd be interested in checking that out.
I think there's like a author con that happened this year, which is like the first year, and it's going to be happening again. It's going to be like in the DFW area, so I'm going to be heading up there and meeting a couple of authors that I have did some reviews over. Matt Michelli, and also guess who's coming? My like spicy sis, Christine.
Hey, there you go.
Christine is coming. I was like, I told you, sister, it was like your season.
Totally your season, man.
Yeah, so she's coming. She's been introduced into the whole thing, and she's invited, and she's going to be doing book signing next year in the DFW at this author con up there.
Let me know.
So
love to check out original authors.
Cause I like reading books. Cause butterfly in the sky.
I see what you did there.
It's in a book. Take a look. It's in a book. Reading rainbow. So yeah. So I'm gonna be up there. So and I get to meet Christine Jermaine, because we have been like conversating. We did like a couple of things like on Instagram, and then she came on my podcast and we talked, and then I did her books and stuff. I love her horror series. It's really good. I love her horror saga.
Lovely.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Well, I'll take us out.
Alrighty then.
Let's check out these conventions. Got to speak to you guys.
All right. I'll be like Picard.
All right, engage.
Let it so.
Make it so.
Make it so. Make it so.
Follow us on the web on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. The podcast is available on Podbean, Spotify, iHeartRadio, Anchor, Apple, and anywhere else podcasts are available. Feel free to review our show and leave comments on any of those sites. Thanks a million for listening.
It's a jacked up